Alright guys, this is the lab video for chapter 1. I'm going to walk you through a couple things. The first one is when you're debugging, you're having issues. You'll typically see the error message down here on the bottom, and it'll give you a line number. But by default, when you run Visual Studio, the line numbers don't show up, and they've got this thing hidden way in a crazy place. So if you go to Tools, Options, and then let me close this. You want to look for Text Editor, and then All Languages, and then General, and then click Line Numbers. And OK. And now your line numbers will pop up. So it's nice to have those because that way, when you have an issue, you can see here's the line number. Or if you have an issue and you email me your file, you can say, well, I have an issue here on line number 12 that I can't solve. So it makes directing comments and help a lot easier. Alright, with that out of the way, I'm going to walk you through just a couple sample labs to give you some idea of how to use these commands that we talked about. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this. So I'm going to add the include stream and using namespace standard. I'm also going to get rid of this. And then I can get rid of this. Add a couple lines. And now I'm all ready. So this is your starting position for most of the labs. Alright, in this first example, we're going to throw some text to the screen, have you answer a question, and then get text back on the screen depending on what you entered as the answer. So first I need a variable. So it's going to be an integer value, and we're going to be... oh my gosh. Alright, and when I'm always fat fingering keys and misspelling words, make sure you don't tell Morosco. Alright, so there's my first value, integer, number of languages. So number of languages is going to be the value. And then I'm going to see out, and we're going to do hello reader. And then, now remember, you can do a /n here, or you could do that's the method I typically use, but if you want to use the /n, that's fine. Alright, now you can also add several lines of text in a row. So if I go back here and I can remove this, and then I go here, sorry, I like my stuff to line up, I'm just weird like that, and then I do another like that. Wait for it. There you go. Now it'll display this on two lines. You know, hello reader, and then welcome to C++. The key is don't put your semicolon after the first bar. Do it there. So where the semicolon is, that tells it like when to stop. And because you have two words and then end line, it moves down the line and puts the rest of the stuff up. So now that's going to show up as two separate lines. All right. Then we wanted to ask the user question. And we're going to do how many programming languages have you used? And whatever they input, we're going to do a cin and say, hey, this is going to be the value for number of languages. But don't be like me and forget your semicolon. Oh my gosh. Ready to cry. And you might want to spell languages correctly. Alright, what? Holy mackerel, do I need to go to bed? There you go. Oh, it's going to be one of those days. And if you find that the video is kind of pausing and stopping in weird places, and sometimes like it seems like I'm editing it. I'm actually hitting the pause key as I'm coughing and doing all kinds of other weird stuff, so bear with me. All right, so now we've got some stuff to come on the screen, and then we've got a question. Hey, how many programming languages have you used? The user enters an amount, and that becomes the number of languages variable. Now this is kind of a chapter 2 topic, but now we can give them a choice. And we can do if number of languages is less than 1, I want you to see out and actually I'm going to add more than that. Oh, I hope all you guys type better than me. Ta-da! So, if number of languages is less than 1, he's going to do this. All right, and when I say he, I mean the computer. But you can also do else, and then see out. All right, and then a little cleanup. So, we declared a variable, number of languages. We sent some stuff to the screen. Then we asked the user a question and waited for their response with the CN. And then based on their response, if their response is less than 1, like they don't know any programming languages, you're going to get, maybe a different book is better for you. Or if they had their response was 1 or more, then they're going to get enjoy the book. So let's try this out. Hey, now you got to see it. So there's my antivirus smacking this down. So we're like, oh crap. So now I got to go in here. And now I have to run it again. So, hello reader, welcome to C++. How many programming languages have you used? Oh, I've used 5. Enjoy the book. Or, how many programming languages have you used? 0. Read the preface. You may prefer a more elementary book. So you always want to check out or to bug your code and do all the choices that you present to make sure that everything worked as you thought it was going to. All right, let's look at another example. And again, these are all in your book, and you can follow along through your book, or what you should be doing is, if possible, and this is why double monitors are so awesome, you could have the video running in one monitor, and you could be doing the code in another. Remember, it's like driving. You're only so good when you first get your driver's license. You have to keep working on it to get better. Obviously, I need help with spelling and grammar. All right, so remember, I'm going to comment this stuff out. Bloop. So now it won't be affected. And move that down the screen, and I'm going to start a new one. So, remember we talked about constants. A constant value does not change. So we can do const, and then double, and we're going to call this rate. And we're going to set the value to 6.9. So, constant means the value can't change. Nothing can change the value. Double means it's going to have a decimal point in there. And then our value's name or identifier is rate, and that's going to be set at 6.9. All right, then we're going to do another double, and this one's going to be deposit. So I've created two variables, one that can change, one that cannot change. All right, see out. enter the amount of your deposit, and number sign. And CN, that's going to be deposit. Alright, now we're going to make another variable, and this one's going to be called new balance. And then new balance is going to equal the deposit plus deposit times rate slash 100. So we're going to take the rate times 100 and multiply by the deposit to get the interest that they would acquire. Then we're going to add that to the deposit, and that becomes their new balance. Then we're going to tell the user in 1 year I know I'm wacky. Now we're going to do you know, if I could type, it would be a miracle. There you go. So in 1 year, that deposit will grow to, and then on the next line, it's going to have the dollar sign, and then their amount, and then an amount worth. Oh my gosh. Why do you guys let me do stupid stuff? Worth waiting for. Now, we typically do a space, and then if I run this, what? No build errors. Crazy. All right. Oh, why am I running the other one? Oh, I see what I did. That fixed it. All right, before I run this, I just want to say it doesn't matter whether you do, you know, the brackets and then and, or you do a space like I tend to do. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. You don't have to have a space here. You don't have to have a space here. It's all a matter of your coding style. I tend to like my stuff to look as neat as possible, but again, sometimes if you're on a deadline, blah, you just kind of slap it in there. All right, so let's run this. So if I do debug, all right, enter amount of my deposit. I deposit $100. So in 1 year, that deposit will grow to 106.9, an amount worth waiting for. So it worked. So again, you got to see how, you know, when we have a value that doesn't change, constant, we make it a constant, and that's the rate. And then we do double. Now, according to the book and other people, if we do a constant value, they'll capitalize the entire variable. And that's why rate is capitalized all the way through. All right, I got one more example before I do. I know when I went through the course and I was learning this stuff, I would print out my lab. So when I was done here, I would take a screenshot. I'd hit print screen on my keyboard. Then I'd go down here to Microsoft Paint. I would paste it in there. And then I would select and I would say, hey, I want to grab just this. And I would keep copies of all my labs in a binder. And that way when I had to go back, you know, by the time you get to chapter 5 and chapter 6, you're like, crap, now how did I do this, or how did I do this other thing? And then you can go back through your old labs and kind of look, and it helps to have that stuff handy. But again, that's just something I do. All right, let's do one more. So I'm going to get rid of this. And again, you can just code it out or kill it like I do. All right, in this next one, we also need the string value. So I'm going to include the string. All right, so first I need some variables. I'm going to make a string, and it's going to be dog name. Then I want an integer, actual age. Then I want another integer, human age. Alright, then I want to send a question out to the screen. Now, I know that doesn't, how many years old is your dog doesn't sound correct, but again, I'm just copying these out of the book so we walk through these examples. Oh my gosh, I'm such a bad typist. Alright, anytime you ask a question, you got to do a cin to get the feedback or to get the response. And this is going to be our actual age. And then, oh, really? So, what we did is we're asking how old the dog is, and then they would tell us how old the dog is. That becomes actual age. And then we're going to multiply that dog age by 7, because remember, dogs live, you know, 7 human year or 7 dog years. Well, you get the idea. And then that becomes their the dog years. So, like, if your dog is 1 year old, it's actually 7 years in dog years. He's actually 7. All right, and then see out. So now we're asking, oh my gosh, what is your dog's name? And then that becomes the variable dog name. And it helps if I spell, oh man, you guys are going to make me, you guys got to be just cracking up at home. And again, if you don't capitalize your variables correctly, so here I did dog name, but N was capitalized, so here it's like, hey, I don't know what this variable is, but if I change it, so when you get lines underneath your variables, make sure that they're the correct spelling. All right, let's do one more. We'll do cout. Okay, so what is your dog's name? Then that's going to fill up the dog name field. And then it's going to say, hey, your dog name is going to add a dash S on the back, or apostrophe S, and then age is approximately equivalent to a 12-year-old human. All right, so let's see what this looks like when we run it. All right, how many years old is your dog? My dog is 10 years old. What is your dog's name? Fido. So Fido's age is approximately equivalent to a 70-year-old human. So pretty neat. All right, and then when you get errors, they'll typically show up down here in the output. So let me func this up. And then go to debug, and I'll hit no. And then I'll see the error. Now dog name is an undeclared identifier. And then the IntelliSense is telling me, hey, what do I got going on here? But here you can see both of them, the error comes from line 25. So I go to line 25, and that's where I have the issue. So make sure you're paying attention to that. Anytime you have that undeclared variable, typically you just fat fingered it or you pulled a JMac on it and you didn't capitalize one of the letters or something. All right, and if you get stuck on something, don't sit there and stare at it for 30 minutes. You know, my rule of thumb is typically 10 to 15 minutes. If I can't figure out the problem in 10 to 15 minutes, I do something else in the lab or I just take a break. You know, I might go watch TV for a minute or do something and see if that clears my head. But I typically get away from it for a little bit of time, at least 10, 15 minutes. Then I might come back and look for a solution online and see, hey, how did somebody else solve that? You can always post in the discussion forums and go back the next day. But typically, if I'm just sitting there staring at it, I'm not going to solve it. So I typically step back, go back in a little bit later with a fresh set of eyes, and then a lot of times the answer kind of, oh, that's what it was, and it kind of just pops in. You know, it's kind of like when your friend says, oh, hey, who is that started that movie, and you know who it is, and you're like, oh, I can't think of the name, and as soon as you walk away from your friend's house and you're driving home, you're like, oh, that was the name, it kind of pops in. That's kind of the way I work, but hopefully that works for you too. All right. So that kind of wraps up the video series for this chapter. Make sure you do the quiz this week, and you've got a lab that you've got to hand in the Dropbox. Remember, the Dropboxes close on Sunday, so your best bet is read the chapter that we cover on Monday and Tuesday. Watch these videos on Wednesday, and then after you watch the videos, try to do the quiz. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, work on your lab, and then hand it in by Sunday at 11 o'clock. All right, again, don't forget, if you have questions, make sure you post in the forums, and we'll see you in the next chapter.